we were all messaging throughout the race, trying to establish who really was at fault. A lot of people suddenly thought it would be Valtteri Bottas. It's up to him, of course, to control the pack. Let's start with him. Where were the safety car lines? How was he doing in terms of managing the pack? Because he was still weaving almost once people had put their foot to the floor.
This is straight up, sort of straight out of the IndyCar playbook, where you're having a look, and you can see here that Valtteri Bottas has really gone past the first safety car line, and he hasn't got his foot fully down. He's still warming his tyres, and already before Bottas had really got going, there was absolute carnage behind him, and you can see the cars flying off everywhere. Who caused it? We're riding on board of the Alfa Romeo there, and he just had nowhere to go. He started to accelerate, but the cars in front were stopped. But the accident was already happening by that point, and I still haven't seen everybody's onboard. Now we're looking at the McLaren onboard, again, just piling into the back, because when you see a driver launching as a race driver, you keep your foot in because you don't want to lose those positions. We heard that said. Here we are on the Haas, managing to stay out of most of that carnage, but probably damaging his tyres. And yeah, I think that was Grosjean there, just managing to stay out of it. But which driver went first? Well, we don't know the question. I haven't even seen all of these angles yet, so I'm still looking down at the screen. You're
so excited to go through all of our onboard footage. We then suggested it might be Danny Kvyat, and we've also heard from Nicholas Latifi saying how difficult these types of starts are. He's experienced them obviously in F2 more recently. Danny Kvyat, is he to blame?
I don't think he is, actually, because we heard this and Will sent over, he thought it was Danny Kvyat, so we went and looked on the onboard footage and we had a look and we'd ride on board. Now here's the telestration. This is an angle I haven't seen before. So look at those cars pulled out. Now what you're looking for is a car with a big gap and then putting his foot down and then someone slowing down. Is that George Russell?
Russell, exactly.
George Russell gets his foot down, but the field hasn't accelerated. He goes to the right. Everybody else accelerates because they think the race has started, and that's where the carnage happens. Now, I wonder, and it would be interesting to see, I'm not sure if we've got George Russell's on board to see, but I think George Russell might be responsible for this. I'm being told that we do have on board with George Russell. Here we go. So we're riding on board with George Russell, coming down the start-finish straight. Now, he's left a big gap in front of him, now puts his foot down to catch up. Everybody else behind thinks that's the restart. It's not, and they all start piling into each other. When he backs off, there's just absolute chaos behind him. His rear-facing camera would be great. I don't think we've got that downloaded from the car yet, but it is absolutely wonderful to look at these really difficult situations on the restart. And what I think the drivers haven't done, they haven't watched enough IndyCar racing, because we saw this exact problem a few weeks ago. Alex Palou, driving for the Team Go IndyCar team, got a restart wrong just like that and piled into a bunch of the McLaren cars off the back.
OK, and so any repercussions for George Russell, do you think, after this race?
I think the race stewards are going to be taking a very long, hard look at that restart to try and work out how they, as race stewards, got it wrong. Did Valtteri Bottas do something wrong by not accelerating in time? I don't think he did. I think he was acting completely within his rights. Roman Grosjean clearly disagrees.
And of course, Lewis Hamilton got on the radio saying those safety car lights went out very, very late, and he said that is the problem if they go out late. Do you agree with Lewis on that?
I do. Bottas hadn't built up that air, that sort of free air that he'd wanted to. But then we heard Pietro saying earlier on the table that actually you don't want to. You want to go slow. You don't want them to start early on and be able to Lewis to have a run at you and try and get through, because that's what he was really worried about. Lewis Hamilton, he wasn't worried about what was going on down the back of the field, so he was trying to outcycle Lewis Hamilton by weaving and then maybe slowing down and making out he's going, and then going just at the point he wanted to. So his actions there, and Lewis just watching him, they were playing their own game. Behind though, because that George Russell had left that big gap, and I'm pretty sure it was Russell, you ended up with that concertina and this just big enormous smash.
Well, it was great to watch. Of course, all the drivers are absolutely fine. But from our desk to your table, we'll be back with a little bit more analysis later on in the show, Will.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, fascinating stuff. What was really interesting with that was when we watched the Bottas replay, and you pointed it out, while he's weaving, he isn't decelerating. You never hear the engine note change. He's at a constant level of throttle, and then as he stops weaving, that's when he accelerates, and by the time he accelerates, the crash is already happening behind him.
Yeah, it had already happened. So he was weaving, and as soon as he stops, but he doesn't decelerate, the crash already happened behind. And then watching the replay of the crash, the way I see it is, yeah, I think Russell had a bit of a gap. He accelerated, but he realized that the people ahead of him hadn't gone. He didn't decelerate that quickly, because even Kevin behind him had the time to slow down. But the issue was, I think Latifi got a bit of speed and reacted really late.
Hold on, let's pause for a second. Let's just listen to the throttle here. he's accelerating.
Yeah, so I feel like he had enough time for people behind him to realize that he decelerated. Yeah, he did accelerate because there was a gap, which at the end I think caused it. But Latifi reacted late.
Very late.
And Giovinazzi behind didn't see the car ahead of Latifi and went straight into Magnussen.
I originally thought that it was Danny Kvyat who'd actually created that gap between the lead pack and then everybody behind, but on closer inspection it did appear that it was George Russell, as you say, coming through that final corner. Danny had already gone with the Renaults ahead. Then there was that big gap, and as we heard, he started to go, and you could hear the engine. He brakes, he decelerates, and everything around him happens as a result of that. Now, I don't know if that is his fault, if it's just a result of what's going on all around him, but it is, a pretty horrifying moment. Let's hear from the other guys involved in that moment. Let's start with the guy who was just that little bit too late to react as Kevin Magnussen's car was flying towards him, Antonio Giovinazzi.
Antonio, that restart, what happened?
I think can be really dangerous like that. You know, I was already flat out. The group behind was pushing already. And then suddenly I saw Magnussen completely stop in front of me. I tried to evitate it, but was just there, and I was already flat out. So yeah, just really dangerous maneuver.
It's quite some contact. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay, thanks.
How frustrating is it on a weekend of opportunities?
Yeah, really frustrated, especially because after lap 1. I had a good again, I was back up to P14, and after that, everything could happen. But yeah, just really dangerous things. So we need to check what we can change on this.
Hard luck. Thank you.
Yeah, really scary moment, really horrible. Just the speed of it, as you said, Nicholas Latifi shooting off to the left, and Antonio with nowhere to go but into the back of Kevin Magnussen. Let's hear from K-Mag at the end of the Tuscan Grand Prix.
Kevin, it looked like chaos. What happened?
Yeah. I haven't watched it from all the cars ahead. I think my feeling is that somebody maybe backed off to then try and go and gain like a momentum. I don't know for sure, but certainly the guys in front of me, the couple of cars ahead, they went, and we were full throttle for at least a couple of seconds. And then they stopped again right before the line, and then I had to stop, but the guy behind me had to stop, and eventually somebody couldn't react, and there was a massive crash. So it has to be looked at for sure and improved for the future, so we don't have that situation again.
A couple of drivers described it as dangerous. Is that fair?
Well, it's certainly dangerous, yeah, certainly, and something we want to avoid in the future.
The car, you've been saying all weekend, has felt better. You just not had much pace. I know you didn't have much experience in the race, but was it feeling all right?
I mean, we have those laps to the grid before the race, and I was really surprised with the feeling in the car. It was very, very good. And I came out of the pits behind one of the Williams, and I was just catching him even on those laps to the grid, and I was telling the guys that it felt really good. So again, we got up to P12 from P20 on the first lap. We had a Williams in front. It was looking very good, so another missed opportunity, and feel very bad for me and the team.
Hard luck, Kevin. Thank you.
When Kevin describes something as dangerous, it's dangerous. He doesn't use that word lightly. Let's roll to the last one of the drivers involved in that incident. It looked, and I think he probably thought he'd got away with it by just skimming to the side of Kevin Magnussen. In the end, though, Nicholas Latifi caught up in the melee, caught up in the action. Let's hear from the Canadian at the end of his race.
Nicholas, what on earth was going on at the restart?
Yeah, I mean, with this track, with the finish line being so late, it was quite clear that I think the leader was always going to try and go as late as possible, just to avoid the slipstream effect. When you're in the midfield to the back of the pack, the Constantiner effect always kind of makes it a bit more difficult to judge. But from already the little straight going into the last corner, it seemed like, at least the cars around me, everyone was pushing flat out, and like the restart I went. So obviously I went. Then I almost hit the back of Kevin already in the apex of the last corner. I had a really close miss there, and then bunched up again, and then again it seemed like everyone went again. So when you're that far back, you're just reacting to the cars around. In my experience, when that happens, and it's happened in Formula 2 and in Baku most noticeably the first year we had that, if the leader doesn't keep a consistent pace. I'm not sure if that was the case, obviously I can't see. And yeah, it just amplifies the effect with these cars that are so fast. So really couldn't do anything to avoid that. So yeah, just a shame.
How frustrating, because this could have been a weekend of opportunities.
Yeah, it definitely looked that way. I mean, we avoided the chaos at the start. We were feeling quite good about the race pace, so it's just a shame. It's really unfortunate.
How'd that?
All of them, I think, incredibly lucky to have walked away from that. A really big incident, a dangerous incident. But we have to be thankful for the safety advances in the sport. We have to, especially today, be thankful for Halo, Pietro, because we saw both with Giovinazzi in that right front becoming loose, thankfully held on by the tether, but bouncing back towards the driver, and massively so today for Carlos Sainz, going into the back of your teammate, and the Haas really rocketing backwards towards him in the cockpit. I think that Halo today has saved us from it being far, far worse.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely important to have that protection over the driver's head. In crashes like this, you know, when it's that high speed and that much deceleration, you have parts of cars flying all over the place. As he said, Sainz with Kevin's car. It was Kevin's car that he went under, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Here you go, on replay right here.
You see the pieces almost hitting the camera of his onboard, and you can see that without the halo there's a much bigger chance of something flying in straight to the driver's head. So it's really great that we have this now in place, and it's a massive step forward into, you know, driver safety.